All right, welcome back. So in this section, we're going to set up one of the prerequisites for the service principals personal access tokens. So when we want to use the service principals to interact with our workspace, we can do this through API calls and through um, other things. For example, when I get to Power BI, what I'll use is a token for my service principal so that my service principal can reach back in and get the resources that they want. So we have really kind of like three tokens and secrets that we're really concerned with. So at the very first stage of this, what we have is it's an Azure resource essentially, and that Azure resource we've already gone through the creation of the client ID and the secret for that. And then once we've got the Azure ID and secret, the next thing that we'll need to do is create an OAuth secret, which is what we're about to do now. And then when you have the OAuth secret, then you can turn around and you can create a personal access token for the principal. So if you're working in, I think AWS, they have the ability to do an on behalf of token creation. I don't think that that works in Azure. So you might have better luck with it than I do, but this is the approach that I take. So I want to call out that the page I'm on right now is a an account level page. So this is within my account. I'm looking at my service principals. The easiest thing to do, honestly, would just be to generate your key manually here, and that's if you've got a small number of principals. For me, I'll actually have several principals because we're going to have them for different environments, different workspaces, that sort of thing. So I'm going to do this more programmatically. So what we're going to do is hop over to the console, or to the, I should say, to the editor, and this is all I'm adding. So understand that I did have a principle already created, or a list of principles. So I'm now just doing these three pieces. So I'm creating what's called a Databricks service principal secret. I am doing it for each. So if you want to skip that loop, you're fine. I am also pointing back to the service principal that I just showed you above. So if I've got a service principal, I'm pointing to the ID of that principal. And then again, the provider of this as is the Databricks account level provider, not the workspace level. So this is an account level resource. Next up, I'm creating that secret, but I don't want to lose it. So I am using a data block to just grab into an existing key vault that I already have. And I think I've showed you how to do this before. So what I'm doing is just making sure that I'm pointing to a key vault that's within the current resource group, or a resource group that I have permission to use, grabbing it by name. And then what I'm doing is the secret that I get from this, I'm just going to push that up to my key vault. So I'm creating a key vault secret. This time I'm going to make sure that I'm doing it for my OAuth. So call it whatever you want. Again, I'm doing a for each loop. I am trying to parameterize this so that I know which environment it's for, or which service principal. I'm giving it the suffix of OAuth so I know what the secret is for. And then I'm for the value, it's the output of that service principal secret. So, and it's not, so sometimes you get a value output. In this case, what we're doing is the dot secret. So that's what we're outputting. And then I'm simply just pointing it to the key vault, which I extracted the key vault information from my data block. And then I am giving it a depends on. So you might not have to do this, but I like to, just to be cautious. I'm making sure that the secret already exists before I try to push a secret up. So I tend to do these depends on blocks where you'll see the Azure. This is an Azure RM versus a Databricks. So when I'm coming from one provider to another, I tend to do these depends on blocks. Just it seems to work better for me. I'm going to pause for 1 second and then I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So what I wanted to do was hop back over to Power BI, because this is kind of my goal, is that I want to set up a connection to my workspace. And so when I get here, what I want to do eventually is I want to use my service principals instead of myself as the method of authentication from Power BI back into my workspace. And in order to do that, I'm going to use the personal access token that I create here in a little bit. So again, this part right here is a prerequisite. This is creating the OAuth token that we will use to then create the personal access token. So this is kind of an intermediate step. One other thing that I want to point out that I'll probably create a video on first is my workspace is, we've got the public access to my workspace has been blocked. So you have to be on my site-to-site VPN or you can't connect to my workspace. And this holds true for Power BI as well. So with Power BI, I'll need to create a way that I can communicate. And so I've got a few options. One option would be to use this new feature called a VNet Data Gateway. That VNet Data Gateway though is it recently came out of preview, and it's got like a $5,000 buy-in fee, which is basically like it's an add-on to Fabric essentially. So like there's, I think the minimum tier would be like about $5,000 per month, and then you pay for this on top of it. An alternative approach that I'm going to take instead is going to be to create a virtual machine in my VNet, and then put an on-prem data gateway there. And so what I'll do is, when I've got that part set up, which I'll do that in the next video, then what we'll do is we'll use our token to connect and pass through that gateway. So we're getting a little bit away from Databricks, but at the end of the day, my goal is to use these service principles in other services like Power BI to then flow through and connect back to Databricks. So that's kind of the goal of this part of the project. So I hope this helps. I'll see you in the next one.